Let me tell you something real, something nobody told you when life started coming at you fast. The truth is, this world doesn't slow down for anybody. Not for your pain, not for your confusion, and certainly not for your hesitation. Life is a battlefield of moments. Some you see coming, and some hit you right between the eyes. And in those moments, you either rise or you freeze. But hear me when I say this: the way you think determines the way you speak, and the way you speak determines the life you build. You ever wonder why some people walk into a room and instantly command respect? It ain't luck. It ain't charm. It's clarity. It's confidence. It's being quick on your feet and even quicker in your mind. The world rewards those who can respond, not react. Those who take a breath, think sharp, and speak truth with power. Because when your mind is strong, your words cut through noise like a blade. Your voice becomes a force. Most people don't realize it, but the first conversation you have every single day isn't with your boss, your partner, or even your friends. It's with yourself. That voice inside your head, that's the one setting the tone for everything that follows. If your inner dialogue is full of doubt, fear, confusion, or insecurity, it doesn't matter how confident you try to sound out loud. People will feel the hesitation in your words. They'll sense the conflict in your energy. That's why if you want to think faster and talk smarter, you've got to begin by mastering the quiet conversations no one else hears. Because what's going on inside of you will eventually show up outside of you. That inner critic, the one that whispers, "You're not ready," or "What if you mess up?" It has to be silenced, not with force, but with truth. You've got to replace it with a voice that says, "I've prepared for this. I'm built for this. I will rise when the moment calls for it." Until your inner voice believes in you, your outer voice will always fall short. The first victory in any room you enter happens in your mind, long before your mouth ever opens. Every single word you speak is just the echo of a thought you've rehearsed in your mind. And whether you know it or not, you've been rehearsing lines every single day. Lines that shape your self-worth, your confidence, your courage. So the real question is, what kind of script have you been following? Because if your mind is running loops like "I'm not smart enough" or "I'm not quick on my feet," you're already 3 steps behind before the conversation even starts. The truth is, smart speech starts with smart thinking, not flashy words, not a loud voice, just clean, clear thoughts, rooted in belief, discipline, and self-respect. When you control your inner dialogue, you don't let anxiety do the talking. You don't let fear shape your response. Instead, you give your brain permission to pause, process, and then powerfully deliver what needs to be said. You're not chasing the moment. You're meeting it head on. When the noise of the world tries to rush you, your inner dialogue becomes your anchor. It slows you down just enough to choose your words with strength and clarity. That inner dialogue isn't just there when you're under pressure. It's working in the quiet moments too. It shapes how you prepare before a big meeting, how you rehearse for a difficult conversation, how you respond to people who test your patience. And if you're not intentional about managing it, it becomes a tool for self-sabotage. You'll start assuming you're unqualified. You'll talk yourself out of speaking up. You'll shrink, not because the world told you to, but because your own thoughts convince you that your voice didn't matter. But when you flip that script, when you begin every day with inner words of confidence, clarity, and purpose, you step into conversations like you belong. You stop second-guessing yourself in mid-sentence. You don't over-explain or apologize for existing. You speak with calm power because your thoughts have already built the foundation. When your inner dialogue becomes a source of strength instead of self-doubt, you'll notice something. You begin to respond faster, more clearly, and with deeper wisdom. That's not a personality trait. That's practice. That's mindset. That's the result of controlling the voice that no one else hears but you. Here's the secret that changes everything. The fastest minds are not the loudest. They're the clearest. And clarity doesn't come from chaos, it comes from order. You can't think on your feet when your mind is tripping over cluttered thoughts. That clutter often comes from the inner dialogue you've left unchecked. Old wounds, insecurities, past failures, negative patterns that you've allowed to rent space in your mind for too long. If you want to talk smarter, you've got to do the hard work of cleaning that space up. Sit with your thoughts. Face your fears. Rewrite the beliefs that no longer serve you. Because once your inner world is disciplined, your outer world starts to follow. Your voice becomes sharper, your message becomes tighter, and your responses come from peace, not panic. When someone throws you a curveball in conversation, your brain doesn't scramble, it navigates. It sees the path. Why? Because you've trained it. You've taken control of your thoughts before they take control of your mouth. This is the foundation of all great communicators. Not just knowing what to say, but building a mind strong enough to trust when the pressure's on. Sometimes the reason we struggle to think fast or speak clearly isn't because we lack intelligence. It's because we haven't learned how to quiet the war going on inside, that war between the part of us that wants to speak up and the part that's terrified of being misunderstood or judged. But understand this, when your inner dialogue is filled with hesitation, your outer voice becomes hesitant too. People don't just hear your words, they hear your uncertainty. But when your inner voice becomes rooted in truth, self-awareness, and courage, it changes everything. You no longer speak to impress, you speak to connect. You no longer stumble through your thoughts, you guide them. You respond to difficult questions with grace. You navigate tension with composure, and it's not because the conversation was easy, it's because you were grounded. You knew who you were before you ever opened your mouth. That's the kind of presence that makes people stop and listen. It doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from deep mental preparation. A dialogue with yourself that says, I've done the work. I'm ready. That belief echoes in every word you say. Learning to control your inner dialogue doesn't mean you silence your fears. It means you stop letting them drive the conversation. Fear will always be there. Doubt will always whisper. But you don't have to give those voices a microphone. You've got to become the editor of your own mind. Just because a thought shows up doesn't mean it deserves your energy. You get to choose what stays and what gets dismissed. That choice, that's power. That's how you build mental speed. Not by memorizing scripts or trying to sound clever, but by filtering out the noise inside so your best thoughts can come forward when it matters most. When your brain knows it doesn't have to fight itself, it gets faster, sharper, stronger. You'll find yourself responding to challenges in real time with calm clarity, not because the pressure disappeared, but because the storm inside you settled. And that's the key. When your mind is still, your voice becomes unshakable. The faster you master your thoughts, the smarter your speech becomes. Think about how many opportunities have slipped through your fingers just because you hesitated, just because you let your mind race with uncertainty. That promotion you didn't ask for, that apology you never gave, that truth you buried under silence. All of that begins in your thoughts. But now you know. You're not a victim to your mind. You are its architect. You have the power to design thoughts that elevate your speech, strengthen your presence, and transform the way people experience your words. Every time you choose belief over doubt, clarity over chaos, truth over fear, you are teaching your mind how to think faster and speak smarter. Not just for your success, but for your peace. So start every day by checking in with the voice inside. Ask it if it's lifting you up or pulling you down. And if it's not helping you rise, change it, redirect it. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love, because when your thoughts become your greatest ally, your voice becomes your greatest weapon. And in a world that's always talking, the ones who control their inner dialogue, those are the ones who rise above the noise. People think silence means weakness. They think if you're not quick to respond, you've lost. If you don't react, you must not know what to say. But that's a lie told by a world that's addicted to noise. Let me tell you something. Silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's control. It's the sound of someone who isn't rattled by the chaos around them. Silence is where strategy is born. You don't win a war by screaming over the battlefield. You win it by seeing what others don't. You win it by seeing what others don't. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is pause, breathe, let the room talk. Let the moment reveal itself, because silence gives you a view you can't get when you're rushing to fill space. People will try to pull you into their emotional storms, but when you remain silent, calm, grounded, they lose control. You're not being passive, you're being deliberate. And that deliberate stillness speaks louder than any rushed words ever could. When you practice the power of silence, you're not backing down. You're just waiting for the right moment to strike with clarity, precision, and power that lands like thunder. That's what silence does. It prepares the ground for impact. You ever notice how the loudest person in the room usually says the least? They talk just to be heard, not to be understood. But when a person walks into a room with presence and they don't speak right away, the room shifts. People feel something different. That's the power of silence. It's not just about saying nothing. It's about commanding everything without needing to raise your voice. It's about making people lean in instead of pushing your words onto them. When you hold your tongue, you hold your power. When you don't rush to reply, you're signaling that your words are not cheap. They're measured, they're intentional, they mean something. Most people respond out of impulse. They speak from emotion, not strategy. But you can choose a higher level. You can observe while others react. You can process while others panic. And when you finally do speak, people will listen, not because you were the loudest, but because your silence built anticipation. It told them you weren't wasting breath, you were choosing your moment. Silence is not emptiness, it's awareness, it's readiness. And when used right, it's one of the most powerful tools you've got in this life. In moments of conflict, silence separates the wise from the foolish. Anyone can argue, anyone can talk over someone else. That takes zero discipline. But it takes a powerful mind to stay calm while being provoked. It takes a strong spirit to say, I don't need to win this moment. I'm here to win the war. Silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. It's letting someone show their hand while you keep yours hidden. It's listening not to respond, but to understand the bigger picture. And when you understand the bigger picture, you stop reacting to the small stuff. You stop getting pulled into traps disguised as conversations. Some people talk just to trigger you. They throw out bait, hoping you'll bite. But silence breaks their rhythm. It throws them off. It forces them to confront themselves. And in that moment, you gain the upper hand, not because you overpowered them, but because you outlasted them. You kept your emotions in check. You kept your words sacred. And that kind of discipline, that makes you dangerous in the best way. Because silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to be smart with your energy. There's something sacred about silence. It's where all the answers live. You don't hear your intuition in the noise. You hear it in the stillness. You don't find your direction in the middle of the crowd. You find it in the quiet moments when the world isn't pulling on you. That's why silence isn't just a communication tool. It's a life practice. It's where you go to recalibrate, to listen to your gut, to feel your heart. When you learn to sit in silence, you learn to separate what matters from what's just noise. You start to hear the truth, not just from others, but from yourself. And that's where smart decisions come from. That's where wise words are born. You're not just reacting, you're reflecting. You're collecting wisdom. So when you do open your mouth, the world hears something deeper, something rooted. That's what gives your words power. Not volume, not speed, but depth. And that depth only comes from silence. Let others rush to be heard. You take your time. You let your silence shape your soul, sharpen your spirit, and strengthen your voice. And when you speak from that place, you don't just talk, you leave a mark. People will misunderstand your silence. They'll call it cold. They'll call it weakness. Let them. Let them guess. Let them wonder. Because while they're busy trying to interpret your silence, you're outgrowing their expectations. You're thinking 3 steps ahead. You're watching patterns, feeling energies, studying truths they can't even see yet. Silence is a weapon they can't measure. It frustrates people who are used to control. It confuses people who feed off drama. When you refuse to react, you force them to sit with their noise. And in that silence, they often reveal who they really are. So don't be afraid to use silence as a filter. It will show you who respects your peace and who's just addicted to chaos. It will teach you who deserves access to your thoughts and who's just wasting your breath. Silence gives you clarity on people, decisions, and direction. So stop apologizing for being quiet. Stop feeling like you need to fill every moment. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing and let that say everything. When your silence comes from strength, not fear, it commands respect without ever raising its voice. You see, speaking too soon is how people lose control. They speak before they understand. They defend before they process. And in that rush, they say things they can't take back. But silence gives you time to observe, time to prepare, time to let emotions settle so that truth can rise. In high pressure moments, an argument, a job interview, a crisis. Your silence can be your armor. It protects your energy. It gives you a shield while others expose their weakness. When people throw chaos your way, your silence becomes a mirror. It shows them their own instability. And when the time comes for you to speak, you won't be scrambling. You'll be surgical, strategic, sharp, because you used your silence not as an escape, but as a sharpening tool. You used it to gather your thoughts, to control your emotions, to align your message. And when you speak from that place, you don't just respond, you resonate. Your words don't just fill the room, they shift it. That's not luck, that's not talent, that's the result of knowing when to be still and when to strike like lightning through silence. If you want to lead, if you want to inspire, if you want to carry influence, learn the rhythm of silence. Let it be your reset, your protection, your preparation. The world rewards noise, but history remembers those who spoke when it mattered, those who didn't chase attention, but let attention chase them. Silence isn't emptiness, it's preparation. It's peace in the storm. It's power under control. And when you hold your silence with confidence, the world learns to respect it. They lean in, they wonder, they listen. Not because you demanded it, but because your energy, your presence, your stillness told them this person has something worth hearing. You don't need to rush. You don't need to compete with the volume of others. You've got something better. You've got silence as your strategy. You've got control. And that makes your voice unshakable when it's time to use it. Let the world chatter. Let them guess. You're not here to make noise. You're here to make impact. And sometimes the loudest message you'll ever send is delivered in the silence between your words. Words are powerful, but precision is what gives them impact. Most people speak like they're spraying bullets, wild, scattered, careless. But the ones who move mountains, they speak like snipers. Focused, deliberate. They don't just talk to fill the air, they speak to strike the soul. And that comes from precision, from knowing exactly what you're saying and why you're saying it. See, precision isn't about having a big vocabulary or sounding intelligent. It's about cutting through the noise with clarity. It's about choosing the right word, not the loudest one. The world is already overflowing with noise, people shouting, posting, arguing, interrupting. But when you master the art of saying less, yet meaning more, that's when people start to lean in. That's when your words carry weight. Because precision shows discipline, it shows maturity, it shows that you've taken the time to think before you speak. And in a world that moves at the speed of impulse, your stillness, your sharpness, your intentional speech, it becomes magnetic. When you practice precision, you stop wasting your energy and you start making an impact. You stop talking to be heard and start talking to change something. Precision is a form of respect, not just for others, but for yourself. It shows that your thoughts have value, that your message isn't an accident. When you speak with precision, you command attention without ever raising your voice. You don't need to convince people with volume. You move them with clarity. You don't have to say everything on your mind. You only need to say what matters. And that takes strength. It takes emotional discipline to resist the urge to explain, defend, or overshare. It takes confidence to know that your silence can speak louder than your explanations. So many people waste their breath trying to prove themselves. But the wise, they don't chase approval. They deliver truth. And that truth is sharp, it's direct, it's unforgettable. You don't bend to fit the conversation, you shape it. Because your precision forces people to stop, reflect, and respect what you just said. In that moment, you're not just talking, you're teaching. You're leading. You're leaving a mark. All because you practice the power of precision. You can tell a lot about someone by how they use their words. Some people speak to impress, some speak to dominate. But the ones who make a difference, they speak to connect. And connection doesn't come from rambling or rehearsed lines. It comes from being real, from being exactly who you are and saying exactly what you mean. Not more, not less. Precision is born from authenticity. When you're clear within yourself, you don't need to dance around. You don't need to dress it up. You don't need to chase validation. You just speak it. And because it's real, it lands, it cuts through walls, it breaks through noise. But when you're unclear inside, you'll say too much or too little, you'll stumble. You try to make up in words what you're missing in presence. That's why inner clarity fuels outer precision. When your heart is aligned, your mouth becomes a laser. Every sentence is clean. Every word has purpose. You're not guessing, you're delivering, you're not reacting, you're responding. And that difference is everything. It turns conversations into transformation. It turns your voice into something unforgettable. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who speaks only when necessary. That's precision in motion. That's a person who doesn't waste energy. A person who watches, waits, and then delivers one sentence that shuts the whole room down. That kind of power isn't born overnight. It's trained. It's practiced. It's earned through self-awareness and self-control. See, we live in a world where everybody's trying to be first. First to speak, first to post, first to react. But the wise aren't worried about being first. They're focused on being right. Not in the ego sense, but in the accurate sense. They take a beat, they breathe, they gather themselves before they speak because they know words carry weight, and once released, they don't come back. So when they speak, it's clean, it's intentional, and it lands. The power of precision isn't just about what you say, it's about what you withhold. It's about the restraint you practice. Because restraint sharpens your message. And when your message is sharp, it cuts through the surface and hits the heart. That's the kind of impact that changes people. That's the kind of presence that never gets forgotten. You don't need to be a poet to be precise. You don't need big words to deliver big truth. In fact, the simpler the message, the stronger the impact. That's why great leaders, great speakers, great change makers, they don't complicate things. They clarify them. They don't hide behind flowery language. They speak from the gut. And that's where your power lives too, in the raw, stripped down, unshakable truth of what you know and who you are. When you speak from that place, you don't ramble. You reveal. You show people exactly where you stand. And in a world that's lost in confusion, that kind of clarity is rare. It's refreshing. It's powerful. Precision isn't about sounding good. It's about being real. It's about saying what's needed, not what's expected. And to do that, you've got to be grounded. You've got to know what matters. You've got to choose depth over decoration. That's how you earn respect. That's how you build trust. Not by saying more, but by meaning more. People remember precision. They feel it. They carry it with them long after the conversation ends. That's the kind of voice worth developing. Precision gives you influence. Not fake influence built on hype, but real influence built on impact. Because people don't follow noise, they follow clarity. They follow someone who can say hard things with grace, someone who can tell the truth without crushing your spirit, someone who can confront, correct, and still connect. That's a rare skill. And it's born from knowing how to be precise with your energy, your focus, your words. Precision forces you to think deeper, to ask yourself, what am I really trying to say? What do they truly need to hear? That level of awareness changes everything. It sharpens your leadership. It strengthens your relationships. It purifies your message. When you're precise, people feel safe around you. They know you're not speaking just to speak. You're speaking because there's something real behind your words, something anchored. And that kind of voice, that kind of presence, it doesn't fade. It lingers. It echoes. Because you didn't just fill space. You filled it with substance. And in a world starved for substance, that makes you a leader worth following. Practicing precision is about more than just communication. It's about character. It's a reflection of how you think, how you process, how you live. It's not a performance, it's a lifestyle. It means being intentional with your words, the same way you're intentional with your time, your energy, your decisions. It means understanding that your words are like seeds. Every time you speak, you're planting something, and what you plant grows. So speak with care, speak with courage, speak with clarity. Don't waste your words on things that drain your spirit or blur your truth. Train yourself to say only what aligns with your values, your purpose, your mission, not to impress, not to defend, but to build connection, to build trust, to build impact. That's how leaders are born. Not through loud declarations, but through quiet mastery. Through knowing that your words can heal or they can hurt. They can inspire or they can confuse. And when you choose precision, you choose power. You choose legacy. You choose to leave behind something that lasts longer than the sound of your voice. You leave meaning. And meaning, my friend, never goes out of style. Emotional control isn't just some soft skill you hear about in self-help books. It's the foundation of true mental power. If you want to think faster, talk smarter, and live stronger, you've got to learn to master your emotions, not let your emotions master you. Because here's the truth. Emotions are like wild horses. If you don't train them, they'll run you off the road. They'll take your mind hostage and leave you powerless, reacting instead of responding. But when you control your emotions, when you harness that raw energy instead of letting it blow through you like a storm, you're no longer a victim of circumstance. You become the calm in the chaos, the voice of reason in the noise, the force that others lean on when the world shakes. That kind of power, it can't be bought. It can't be taught by someone else. You have to own it. You have to wrestle it down. And the fight to control your emotions is the fight for your life. Because every choice you make starts there, in that silent battle between reaction and control. Most people think emotional control means suppressing feelings, like locking them away and pretending they don't exist. That's a lie. Emotional control is not about weakness or silence. It's about strength. It's about feeling deeply, but choosing wisely. It's about acknowledging the fire inside you without letting it burn your house down. When you control your emotions, you're not numb. You're powerful. You're aware. You're deliberate. You're the captain of your ship, steering through storms instead of drifting aimlessly. And that takes work. It takes discipline. Because emotions don't wait for you to be ready. They hit hard and fast. But the stronger your mental training, the faster you can catch them, assess them, and decide how to act. You become like a warrior who doesn't just swing his sword wildly, but strikes with precision and intent. That is mental power in action. That is the kind of control that changes everything. Your words, your relationships, your success. Imagine this. You're in a high-pressure moment. Your heart's pounding, adrenaline rushing, and your mind screaming to react, maybe with anger, fear, or frustration. Now, most people give in to that first impulse. They speak without thinking, lash out, or shut down. But not you, because you've trained yourself to pause, to breathe, to recognize that emotion but not surrender to it. That pause is a superpower. It's the difference between destruction and construction, between breaking a relationship or building a bridge, between missing an opportunity or seizing it. That split-second choice. It's where mental power lives. The people who master emotional control don't waste energy on regret. They don't get caught in the cycle of reaction and apology. They lead with clarity and calm. And the world notices. They become magnetic because confidence isn't loud, it's steady. It's knowing who you are enough to not let every emotional wave dictate your course. That kind of power is earned, not given. Emotional control also means owning your mistakes without drowning in guilt or shame. Because here's the thing, you will mess up. We all do. We're human. But the mentally powerful don't let emotions like embarrassment or anger consume them. They face their faults head on, learn from them, and move on with grace. That's emotional maturity. It's the ability to say, I was wrong, without it breaking your spirit, to feel pain without it defining your identity. When you master your emotions, failure no longer feels like the end of the road. It becomes a lesson, a stepping stone, a tool for growth. You start seeing challenges not as threats, but as opportunities to prove to yourself how resilient you truly are. That perspective shift, that's mental power. It changes your entire story from victim to victor. And it starts with control of the emotions that once held you hostage. The truth is, life will test your emotional control every day. People will push your buttons, disappoint you, challenge your values, and shake your foundation. But mental power means standing firm in your truth without letting your emotions spiral out of control. It means choosing your battles and not wasting energy on every slight or setback. When you can hold your ground emotionally, you not only protect your peace, but also inspire respect. Because everyone can get loud and angry. That's easy. But it takes real strength to stay calm, clear-headed, and strategic when emotions run high. That strength moves mountains. It wins respect in boardrooms, at home, and on the streets. People follow strength, not rage. They trust leaders who show up steady, not explosive. So ask yourself, are you controlling your emotions? Or are your emotions controlling you? Because the answer shapes everything: who you are, what you become, and the legacy you leave. Mental power also means being intentional about what emotions you feed. You get to choose your focus. You get to decide if you let anger, jealousy, or bitterness take root, or if you nurture patience, gratitude, and hope instead. That's the real work. It's not about ignoring feelings, but channeling them. Because emotions, when harnessed right, become fuel. They become motivation to rise, to fight, to create. But if left unchecked, emotions become poison, destroying your confidence, your relationships, your dreams. So train yourself to recognize destructive emotions early and redirect them. Use disappointment as a teacher. Use fear as a compass. Use sadness as a call to action. When you do this consistently, your emotional control grows stronger every day. It's like sharpening a blade. The more you work it, the sharper, the keener it becomes. In a sharp mind with controlled emotions, there's nothing you can't handle. Finally, emotional control is freedom. Freedom from being a slave to every mood, every trigger, every past hurt. Freedom to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. Freedom to create space between stimulus and response. And that space, that's power. That's peace. That's mastery. When you master your emotions, you master yourself. You don't lose your humanity, you deepen it. You don't become cold, you become courageous. You don't give up your passion, you channel it. Emotional control is mental power because it's the key that unlocks your highest potential. So commit to training that power, to wrestling your emotions into submission without losing your soul, to being the calm, the strength, the leader in your own life. Because when you do, you don't just survive, you thrive. And that's the difference between living a life ruled by reaction and living a life ruled by purpose. Confidence is not some mystical gift handed down from the universe to a chosen few. It's not luck, and as sure as hell isn't magic. Confidence is forged in the trenches of consistent effort, in the relentless grind of showing up over and over again, even when the fear inside you screams to run. That's the truth no one wants to admit. People look at those who seem confident and think they were born that way, as if they woke up one morning wrapped in certainty and unshakable belief. But the reality is far messier. Confidence comes from repetition, from practicing your craft, from failing and trying again until your hands stop trembling and your voice stops cracking. It's the cumulative effect of small victories, the hundreds of times you force yourself to stand tall, speak up, and face discomfort head on. That's how real confidence is built, brick by brick, moment by moment, long before anyone notices. You see, the magic is in the mundane. The power is in the ordinary acts done with extraordinary consistency. The person who looks like they have it all together, who commands a room with ease, they didn't get there by chance. They got there because they committed to the process. Because every day, no matter how scared or uncertain, they chose to do the hard thing again. They practiced their speech in front of the mirror. They made that phone call even when their heart was pounding. They prepared themselves for failure and kept walking forward anyway. Confidence isn't a destination, it's a muscle. And just like any muscle, it grows stronger the more you use it. So don't wait for the perfect moment or some lightning bolt of inspiration. Start where you are, with what you have, and keep moving. Repetition will carry you. Think about the first time you tried something new. Maybe it was speaking in public, learning a sport, or even asking someone out. Remember that gut-wrenching knot in your stomach, the shaking hands, the racing thoughts telling you you'd mess up? That was fear whispering lies. But each time you stepped back into that arena, even if you stumbled, your confidence got a little bigger. That's how it works. Confidence doesn't erase fear, it teaches you how to walk through it. It teaches you that failure isn't the end of your story, but a chapter in your book. And the more chapters you write, the more your confidence grows. Repetition rewires your brain. It builds new neural pathways that tell your mind, I can handle this. I've done it before and I can do it again. That's not magic. That's hard-earned growth. When you think about the people you admire, leaders, artists, athletes, none of them got there without countless hours of practice. None of them woke up one day with all the answers. They showed up day after day, putting in the work, making mistakes, learning, and pushing themselves beyond their comfort zones. Confidence doesn't come from never failing. It comes from failing and choosing to rise anyway. And here's the kicker. Every time you repeat an action, every time you put yourself out there, you chip away at self-doubt. The voice in your head that says, I'm not good enough, gets quieter and quieter until it's barely a whisper. That's how repetition transforms you. That's how it builds a foundation so solid, so unshakable, that no external circumstance can tear it down. Confidence isn't a magic trick. It's the result of showing up and doing the work when no one's watching. It's tempting to want to skip the hard parts, to want confidence to arrive like a sudden gift wrapped in certainty and swagger. But life doesn't work that way. Confidence is a lifelong journey, not a one-time event. It's about waking up every day and deciding to step outside your comfort zone again, to take that risk, to say the words that scare you, because the more you do, the more your confidence compounds. Number 3, it's like putting money in a savings account. Small deposits made consistently turn into something substantial over time. And with every step forward, you're proving to yourself that you are capable, that you belong, that you deserve to be heard. That is the real magic, not some fairy tale moment, but the steady power of repetition. Don't let setbacks fool you into thinking you're failing or that confidence is out of your reach. Setbacks are part of the process. They're the proof that you're stretching, growing, and daring to be more. Each time you stumble, remember that it's not a defeat, it's a lesson. Repetition allows you to learn those lessons deeply and come back stronger. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes routine. What once made you freeze now makes you smile. That transformation isn't instantaneous, it's slow, deliberate, and requires patience. But if you keep going, keep showing up, you will build a confidence that isn't fragile or fleeting, but rock solid and lasting. You'll speak with a voice that commands attention, not because you try to dominate, but because you've earned your right to be heard. So embrace the grind. Embrace the repetition, because that's where confidence lives. It's in the mornings you practice alone, the failures no one sees, the moments when you push past fear and doubt. Confidence is the reward for persistence. It's the natural outcome of relentless practice. And when you build that kind of confidence, you don't just talk smarter, you live smarter. You carry yourself with the quiet strength that others can feel. You make decisions with clarity instead of hesitation. You become unstoppable. That's the truth. Confidence comes from repetition, not magic. And that truth, it's your greatest power. As we come to the close of this journey together, remember this: confidence is not a gift reserved for a lucky few. It's not a sudden spark of magic that lights up one day and never fades. It's a flame you build slowly, deliberately, through every moment you face your fears and decide to try again. It grows quietly in the background of your life, shaped by repetition and perseverance. The times you stumble, the times you feel uncertain, those are the moments where your confidence is being forged in the fire. The more you practice, the more you embrace discomfort, the stronger your belief in yourself becomes. This is the foundation that allows you to think faster, talk smarter, and step into the world with a presence that commands respect and inspires trust. So lean into the process, honor your progress, and keep moving forward. Never underestimate the power of your emotions or the control you can have over them. Emotional control isn't about shutting down your feelings or pretending they don't exist. It's about mastering the storm inside so that you can respond with clarity and strength instead of reacting with chaos. When you learn to own your emotions, to use them as fuel instead of letting them burn you out, you unlock a mental power few ever experience. That control creates space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. It's in that space that your greatest strength lives. When you control your emotions, you control your destiny. You become a leader in your own life, unshaken by the world around you, moving with purpose and peace. Understand that silence can be your greatest ally. It's not a sign of weakness or uncertainty, but a strategic choice. In the moments when words could inflame or mislead, silence lets you gather your thoughts and respond with precision. Silence gives weight to your presence and power to your voice when you finally speak. It's a tool that can disarm tension and command attention without saying a single word. Remember, confidence is not about filling every space with noise, but about speaking with intention and meaning. Practice precision in your speech. Let your words be sharp, clear, and impactful. The combination of emotional control, silence, and precise communication is what will set you apart. So, as you move forward, carry these lessons with you. Confidence is earned through relentless repetition, emotional mastery, and purposeful silence. It's not magic, it's work, dedication, and the courage to keep showing up. The path won't always be easy, but the reward is a life where you think faster, talk smarter, and live with unwavering strength. Believe in your ability to grow, to learn, and to lead yourself through every challenge. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. God bless you on your journey. May your voice be powerful, your mind sharp, and your heart steady. Keep pushing forward.